You can avoid tons of problems in life by doing one thing: going to bed on time. And so instead of setting alarms to wake up, set alarms to go to sleep on time. It's hard to wake up late when you go to bed at 9. Everything's compounding is amplified, right? The stuff you do now amplifies throughout your career and your life. And so I would want to stack as many advantages as I can to my favor, which is like, I'm gonna go to sleep on time. I'm gonna not drink, right? I'm going to get in shape, right? I'm going to do as many repetitions as I can. I'm gonna humble myself with people who are more experienced than I am. Your friend group has a disproportionate sway over your behavior. And so your reference group is one of the #1 correlations with how big your life gets, or rather, the goals you achieve. Your goals will stick with you longer than these relationships. Your goals will serve you more than these relationships. And you have to accept that as the price. And the thing is, it's like, it's only if you want that. Like if you want to live a life that is the same as everyone else's, then you can do what everyone else does. The only issue is when you want to do what everyone else does, but get what none of them have. And so it's this constant appraisal of your skills and activities and saying, which of these makes me stronger? Which of these makes it more likely for me to hit my goal? And I just want to give you that frame because that single frame of, is this person being in my life make it more likely or less likely that I hit my goal? Is this activity or this behavior that I do make it more or less likely that I hit my goal? Most of the things you need to do, you already know what to do, and you delay doing them under the guise of having a better plan. But the reality is that your plan is always going to change as soon as you get new information.
Expecting to be good on your first try. And I think that's where a lot of people, it's the expectation that destroys their ability to be successful because they expect to win on the first shot, and no one does.
You just have to be able to do things without seeing an immediate reward. Like if there's one meta skill that overshadows all of this, it's your ability to delay gratification. It's to delay a moment of reward. It's that there are many right paths, but only one thing will prevent you from achieving all of it, which is the only thing I'm trying to conquer in this video, is getting you to not do the one wrong path, which is fear. Fear of not making it work, fear of other people's disapproval who don't matter anyways, that you aren't cool anymore, or because you don't show up to social events, or because you don't blow money on stuff that doesn't matter anymore, or you're not wearing the brands that they think are cool. Is all of that worth you for the rest of your life having the crushing feeling of mediocrity, knowing you could do more? Use what you've got. And the reason I like that is because many people always don't start things because they don't have the capital, they don't have the connections, they don't have the whatever insert insecurity or projection of blame and power they want to put on. But the first rule is you use what you have. And so it's about resourcefulness, not resources. And so if you have energy, you use the resource you have, you use what you've got to trade, to develop experience, to develop proof that you can get good at a skill. And you only get good at a skill by not being good at a skill and repeating it and then failing at each time and then making incremental improvements, which take many, many repetitions until you actually get good.
There's a quote that I love from Dr. Kashi. I'll probably butcher it, but experts have more ways to win than beginners do. And so if an expert goes into any setting that they're expert in, they have so many faster feedback loops that reward them in the moment before the ultimate outcome. So if you're a master video editor, there's so many things that you can do that while editing, you make one change and then it looks right, you have a positive feedback loop. And so I think when you're on the start path, you can't look at the outcome as the only positive because you will never make it. And so the positive frame that I've always used is, sure, you can have the external ones of like, I like thinking about my first videos had like 13 views. And I'm like, well, if I had an audience of 13 people, I used to spend years pitching, weight loss stuff to rooms of 13, and that was fine. And so thinking about that way was helpful. But the most helpful frame was thinking about who I was becoming as the asset that I was building. So in real time, whenever I finished a long day's work, I was becoming more like the type of person who could work for 5 years without reward. And that would be part of the story I would someday tell. And so some of the biggest reinforcers I've had in my life has been future casting the story that I would tell about the shitty period that I was in.
Whenever you have that feeling that things should be happening faster, use action as your coping mechanism. Action alleviates anxiety. The only thing I could control is that I would work, is that I would get better. And the key point there was that it wasn't just working for work's sake, it was working with the intention to improve. And so you want to do repetitions because by doing things more times you get better at them.
When you're starting out, you need to focus on learning rather than earning. And so I think one of the biggest hacks in the world is getting paid to learn.
The people who move faster than life learn faster. And the only way you learn is by changing your behavior with the same conditions, which means that if a person walks in, I say, this is my 6-point script. A person who's identical walks in right afterwards. If I've learned something, that script changes. It means same condition, new behavior. And so if you keep doing the exact same thing every single day, then you may not be learning. And this is a key point. It's good to work hard, but it's good to work hard and smart, which means that the work you do gets better because you tweak things. And so if you're not documenting the process that you have, and I'm not saying you're making content about it, but literally looking back at game footage, looking at the calls you did, looking at the content you did. I do this today. People ask me like, what are the masterminds you're into? What are the courses you learn from? I have now broken apart the learning process that I have that works best for me because I see the biggest gains and improvement haven't come from advice for me, for the most part. They came from looking at data, which was, let me look at the last 2,000 ads I made. Let me look at the top 50. Let me look at what these ones have in common. Let me look at what they don't look like compared to the bottom 50. Okay, these ones have these characteristics, these don't. I'll do more of this and less of that. And then I do another 100 ads and I look at the top 10 again. I say, what do these ones have that these ones don't? And I do that for sales calls, I do that for content, I do that for meetings, I do that for businesses in general when you start zooming out. And so that process of do a lot of volume, then look at the outcomes that were good, look at the activities that led to those outcomes that are positive, do more of those activities, look at the bottom percentages, look at the things that led to not having that happen, and do less of those.
So Dr. Cashy's my closest friend. He's like a behavioral whatever, loves studying why humans do things. And so people who are most successful, a lot of times, it's not that they necessarily have more willpower, they find other ways to reward themselves. And so he's like, the more skills you have, the more ways you have to reward yourself. And so somebody can extend how long their time horizon is because they do gamify it. So people who don't have the skills of figuring out ways to reward themselves in the meantime can't make it the whole way. But that's like when you're doing cardio and you're like, okay, it's 5 times 5 to get out of here, right? You create micro games within the longer game to keep yourself going. I'm a big fan of being directionally correct rather than absolutely correct. And so I think what happens is most people are trying to find the perfect answer when they have no perspective from which to make a judgment. They're trying to find the perfect thing to do when they haven't done anything. So how will you have perspective to make a judgment? You cannot admit deficits and say you're awesome at the same time. So I think it's like a should statement, which is like one of my big things. It's like, why should I? Why does it have to be? Why must it? Doesn't must anything. It just is that way. And that's fine.